This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And you're listening to Python's Paradise, your film and music show. And this is your host, Greg Gilbert, a.k.a. the Python Hyena. And you know, I've talked a lot about the movie Class of 1984, which is a movie I've known for I was 10 years old when it originally came out in 1982, but I know I've seen it shortly after that, and that movie's just been with me. And strangely enough, as somebody who's bullied in school, I don't know why I'm so attached to it, but I've had Lisa Langlois on here, I've had Mary Lynn Ross on here from the movie, and of course I had the two guys that wrote the book Destroy All Movies, Zach Carlson and Brian Connolly, on here back in March. Well, we've got another addition to the movie, and I can't get enough of that film. We have Drugstore himself, Stefan Arngrim. How you doing, Stefan?
I'm doing fine, Greg. How are you?
Did I say your name right, Stefan?
Just Stefan's fine. Yeah, you don't have to accent it.
Okay. Well, I've seen Stefan spelled two different ways, and
yeah, it's just phonetic. You know, I can't handle anything more, so it's just Stefan.
So you're located in Vancouver and New York?
Yeah. I sort of go between the two, but I'm really settling back down here in New York. This is kind of I was born in Toronto, but my parents moved here to New York when I was about 2, so this is sort of where I grew up and where I started my career, and you know, so it's nice to be back.
Wow. Yeah, I've done quite a few interviews from New York over the past short while. I mean, Stephen Latt from Scanners, Leslie Donaldson from Curtains, who's also worked with Lisa in a couple of movies.
Yep.
I know Catherine Mary Stewart. I've had her on. So,
there you go.
Yeah, so I've had a few people from New York. You guys are an hour behind us, whereas in Los Angeles and Vancouver,
right.
Los Angeles and Vancouver, you're 4 hours behind. Have you ever been to out New Brunswick?
No, you know, I haven't. No, I've really only because, like I said, my parents moved here when I was a baby, and so I really had most of my life was here in the States, or traveling and stuff like that. I really I only wound up going back to Canada in the last the first time really was on Class of '84, where because that was shot in Toronto, and so they had me on board for that. And that was like the first time I'd worked in Canada. I still am a Canadian citizen, so it behooves them to hire me. And then in 1994, I started going up there. Well, actually, in the 80s, I went up there and wrote and produced a couple of movies. And then in the 90s, I moved up there for a while and did there was a lot of work up there, a lot of television, a lot of features and stuff like that. And so, you can only you become like a location after a while. If you get used too much, they burn you out. We can't again. And so and then plus I was sort of reunited with this woman I'd met years ago. As a matter of fact, just before I did Class of '84, and so it seemed like a reasonable idea to move back here to New York to,
Is she American?
The love of my life.
Is she American?
What's that?
Is she American?
Yes, she is. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm from Fredericton, New Brunswick. It's just a small province, I think the closest we have to celebrities is the Trailer Park Boys, who are about 6 hours away.
Yeah, sure. Hey, those guys are big.
You like them?
I love those guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well,
great show. Very clever.
Yeah, Ivan Reitman produced their first movie, and right now,
yeah, which was all about hitmen for pets, as I remember.
Yeah. Well, I understand on Facebook there's a petition going around trying to, and I think this is a great idea, to get them to host Saturday Night Live.
Oh, it would be a terrific idea. I don't know why nobody's done it before. And with Lorne Michaels being an old Canadian himself, he should welcome that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I got to ask though, how did you get into the business?
Oh, okay. Well, it was a family business, so if we'd have been in dry cleaners or grave diggers, I probably would have done that. My parents were both. My father was a producer and director, and also an actor. My mom was an actress and a singer and voice artist, actually, and she was the voice of Casper the Friendly Ghost and Gumby and Sweet Polly Purebred on Underdog and Davy and Goliath. She did all these voices. She had a really terrific career.
She was Gumby before Eddie Murphy?
Yeah, she was Gumby before Eddie Murphy. Exactly. And my parents moved here. My dad was doing a play on Broadway, and my mom had just finished her contract at the CBC, and I was 2 years old, and she came here to work. And so I think I was about 5, and my parents were real sort of 50s beatnik actors.
Yeah.
And they had some party when I was about 5 years old, and a lot of theater people and movie folks, and one of the biggest casting agents in town, a great guy named Marvin Page, was there, and he asked my parents if they had any ideas about did they think I wanted to be in the business or something. And they said, "Oh, no, we're just going to let him decide," and everything like that. And at the time, I was standing up on a coffee table entertaining a bunch of people doing, my best 5-year-old impression of Marlon Brando and Julius Caesar. And Marvin said, "Well, I think he's already decided." So it was a matter of a couple of months later, Marvin called me, and I went in and I read for a soap opera called Search for Tomorrow. And this is when these things were live. It went out when the red light on the camera went on. That was it, and everybody was there. And I got that right away, and I did that for a year and a half. And so that's it's when people ask me advice about getting in the business, it's like I'm kind of cheated on that. I don't really know. It wasn't nepotism. It was my own desire to do it. I just wanted to do what my folks were doing. I knew what they were doing, and they took me with them to the theater and clubs and studios and stuff. So I just thought it seemed perfectly natural to me. So I don't know what advice. It's not very helpful advice to anybody. Well, here's what you do. Make sure your parents are in the business and that they have a party with a big casting director there. That's how you do it.
Well, what?
I was lucky. I just started working here in New York a lot,
doing
a lot of television in the 60s and stuff, and then eventually got a call from L.A. and went out there and started doing movie stuff and more TV, and it just went from there.
Well, you know what? I'm quite overwhelmed, too, because I've been reviewing movies since 1996, and I didn't start here at CHSR. I'm a volunteer here, and I do a film and music show, and I started here in 2005, but I didn't start...
Wow.
Huh? Yeah.
Wow, good. That's cool.
But I never started podcasting until last year, and it happened.
Really? Yeah.
It happened kind of by accident because I ended up with an interview with Tommy Wiseau from The Room.
Okay.
Yeah. And have you seen that movie?
Which one?
The Room.
Oh no, I have it. I have a screener of it. I haven't watched it.
Then you know the reputation.
Yeah. Yeah. I have it actually. It's right in my office here on my bookcase. I'm looking at it right now. But no, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
They say it's.
I get kind of backed up on stuff.
They say it's one of the worst movies ever made, and
well, it's right up my alley.
Well, they're doing a movie based on a book that was made on the making of the film, and I guess James Franco is supposed to play Tommy. And after that interview, I just sat back and thought, who else could I talk to? And I just went back to my younger days, because like I said, I was born in 1972, so I went back to old VHS stuff that I used to watch when my uncle owned a video store, and I remember one of the first people I contacted was Lisa Langlois, and I contacted some of the people from the Friday the 13th movies and whatnot, and you're my 34th interview I've had since.
Oh, wow, cool.
And
that's great.
You're my third from class of 1984, and I'm going to tell you, I remember, and I told Lisa this, I remember the first time I'd seen that movie, I was at my uncle's place, and I was afraid of horror films and stuff like that at the time, you know. I didn't want to see that stuff, but I remember the exact scene it was at, and it was the one scene where Perry King as Mr. Norris is in the hallway walking down the hall, and you guys are all following, going, "Hey, Mr. Norris, Mr. Norris, Mr. Norris," and Peter Stegman does his I'm the future," just before, you know, shit hits the fan, and
yeah,
and I had no desire at the time to watch it again, but some reason I ended up coming back to it, and here you're my third cast member I've interviewed from it.
See, you just don't know.
But I think the first question I have to ask you, and I did this to Lisa, I've got to do this to you. So here's your first question. You ready?
Yeah.
What is the female? You know this question?
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Let me get my 45. I still have to hold that up to me. Yeah. Why?
the female, or the species, as Rodney McDowell said to you.
Yeah, that was really cool. The answer is why. And what was cool about that is that I'd known Roddy since I was about 9 years old. And when I first went out to L.A. and I did a picture out there, I lived at the Chateau Marmont, and he lived there for years. And having been a child actor himself, he was, you know, he kind of took me under his wing, and, you know, he was just a really nice guy. And so we knew each other pretty well over the years, but we never worked together, because that always happens. You never work with the people you know, you know. So Class of '84, that actually one of the things that was exciting about making that movie for me was I knew I was going to get to work with Roddy, you know, for the first time, which was terrific. First and last time, I'm afraid, but it was a lot of fun.
That scene in the classroom where, you know, of course, to reflect on and people that will be listening to this, of course, you guys had, no, to give background on the film, of course, it's about this violence in the schools, and, you know, it's a little ahead of its time at the time, but now it just seems like everyday thing, but nonetheless...
it's Blackboard Jungle with punks.
There you go. Perry King is the new teacher at the school, and of course Roddy McDowell. He got
the Glenn Ford part, yeah.
And Roddy McDowell plays a biology teacher, and you guys do a nasty thing to this lab animals, and that sets him off. And that scene where he draws the gun in the classroom and asks you guys the questions, that to me is the most powerful moment in the film.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do that scene. And the weird thing about that is about 17 years later, I did another film for Mark Lester, who directed Class of '84, called Misbegotten, with Kevin Dillon and my pal Nick Mancuso. And there's a scene in that where Kevin pulls out a .45 and sticks it in my face and asks me a question. And we shot it in Vancouver, right under the Lionsgate Bridge at night, this whole scene. And when we finished the scene, we cut, and I heard laughter from off camera, and Mark Lester was sitting in his chair cracking up. And I said, "What? It's so funny." And he said, "Well, I was just thinking that 17 years ago I had Roddy McDowell stick a .45 in your face, and you made exactly the same noise as you just did just now." And I said, "Well, what can I tell you? That's the noise I make if you stick a gun in my face." Yeah, I love doing that scene. We had a lot of fun doing that. Oh yeah, and about the lab animals and everything. Between all of us, Tim and Keith and Neil, Keith Knight, Neil Clifford, and Lisa, we sort of all decided that had been Drugstore's idea.
Oh.
To go toast the animals.
Well, you mentioned Kevin Dillon. I gotta say, I'm probably alone on this, but I loved the Entourage movie, and I never watched the TV show, but I thought he was so funny in it.
Oh, absolutely. He's a really funny guy. Him and Matt both are great, and great talents, and I really enjoyed working with Kevin, and we became buddies. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, Class of '84, you get to work with Roddy McDowall, and of course, he's done a lot of stuff, Planet of the Apes, Fright Night, terrific actor. And
Al Waxman was in Class of '84 too,
Yes, he is. He's the police chief.
Yeah, that was fun. There's a whole bunch of people in that movie. They were real interesting, just in and out.
Well, before we talk...
It was a strange little movie to shoot. And Arthur Kent was the producer of that film, Class of '84. Now, Arthur Kent isn't really well known as the producer of Class of '84, but he is really well known as the Scud Stud from CNN during the Iraqi or the Kuwaiti invasion thing. He was the Scud Stud. He was the reporter on CNN, the young, good-looking guy that everybody, that's the producer of Class of '84.
Holy cow.
Well,
I gotta say, Perry King, of course, playing the new teacher that comes in after Mr. Goldstein falls down a flight of stairs, which we don't ever see. But whoops! I have a feeling that was planned.
Yeah, I think he had some help.
But Perry King, what was he like to work with? Great
fun. We had a lot of fun together. We had a lot of fun on set and quite a bit of fun off set, as a matter of fact. He's a terrific guy. I can't say enough about Perry, and actually he named the movie.
Oh yeah.
Because when we started shooting that film, the original screenplay was called Gorilla High.
Okay.
And nobody was real crazy about that. Not even Mark.
Okay.
And so one day Mark came down to the set, and we were in the school, which, by the way, is Central Tech in Toronto. And it's supposed to be Chicago, of course, but but it's Central Tech High School in Toronto. And he came in and he said, "Listen, we got to come up with a new name for this thing because it's getting better than I thought it was going to be." So we said, "Oh, okay." So we were just throwing around, batting names back and forth all day in between shots and stuff, and some really weird ones. But it was Perry actually who came up with it. End of the day, said, "It's the Class of 1984. That's what and so he gets credit for that. I don't know if he gets credit for that anywhere else, but I'm giving it to him because I was there.
Why 1984? Like a movie came out in 82.
81 when we were shooting that, and there needed to be a little bit of a futuristic bent on it because we were doing some things that now, of course, are standard procedure in most schools, like metal detectors and stuff like that. But in 1981, that was kind of a new thing, and there was some stuff that looked like a little bit of a push, So we didn't want to put it too far ahead. It wasn't science fiction.
No.
But a couple of years on it, and also, the 1984, George Orwell's 1984, it's just a good number that rings. Most people, heard that. And it was the Class of 1984. And of course, that would have meant that all of us in Stegman's gang would have already been left back at least 5 times because we were certainly well over 17. But
yeah,
whether or not we'd actually graduated in Class of '84, I don't know.
Well, I'd say they probably...
Michael Fox. Michael was in the movie, and that was before he was Michael J. Fox. He was just Michael Fox from Vancouver. And it was right after Class of 19. As a matter of fact, he told us when we were wrapping the movie, he was, I'm going down to L.A. and testing for this show, and I don't know. And, of course, it was Family Ties.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. And Michael's a great guy. And, of course, and I had him killed in the movie, which, you know, sort of brought us closer together.
Oh, he didn't die, though.
No, he didn't. That's right. He didn't die. But I removed him from the gameplay.
I gotta say, when I was in high school, I think the character I related to most was Arthur, the character that Michael J. Fox played, because I was a bully victim, and I think one of the ways I handled it is that a lot of people knew that I had a love for snakes. And nobody knew whether I owned one or not, but I had a picture of myself with a 10-footer. I told some people that I owned it.
There you go. See, you use what you got. Work with it.
Yeah, but
don't screw with me. I got a snake.
There you go. But
that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, one of my inspirations was Jake the Snake Roberts. I used to love it when he put that snake on his opponents. Yes. You know, but Michael J. Fox was like I heard when he was on the set, like he had that really bad haircut. I heard he did a lot of smoking and drinking, you know, and.
Yeah, well, it was just that kind of a movie, I'm afraid. You know, it was in the beginning of the 80s, end of the 70s, and you know, you worked hard on those things, and so you played hard too when you were. So I'm afraid we all overindulged. Excuse me, during that picture.
Well,
to some real extremes, actually.
Well, I remember us telling Lisa, I think Michael J. Fox kind of owes it to you guys, because if it wasn't for you guys, he would never be able to deal with that hoverboard gang and Back to the Future, too.
Well, there you go. See, he had experience.
There you go. And what a career he's had.
You know? But, yeah. Yeah, it was nice. So in a lot of ways, it was sort of a jumping off point for a lot of people in that movie, and that was kind of nice. I like being involved in those projects when, you know, you see people they're just about to kind of break, and I think, you know, I knew Michael was going to do something clear, and he'd done a great series for PBS called Cooperstown.
Okay.
I think it was a 13-part thing, and it just gotten really good reviews. And he was clearly knew what he was doing, and working with him was a pleasure, and that's important, because who wants to work with idiots? And
yeah.
so we I think everybody agreed. I remember Perry and I talking about it after he said, "Oh, I'm going," you know, because he was trying to be very realistic about it, Michael, about, you know, I'm going to L.A., I'm testing for the show. Who knows? I don't know, you know, and everything. And Perry and I later on said, he's going to do this thing. This thing, you know, if he doesn't do this, he's going to do something. He's too good at this, and he's got a great look and the whole thing. So we sort of figured something was going to happen.
It's sad about the Parkinson's disease, you know.
Yeah. My dad died from Parkinson's, or as a result of Parkinson's, and he actually was in contact with Michael while he was sick, and you know, that Michael they became friends and were very supportive, and Michael was very supportive of him and all that. Yeah, it's a dreadful disease, and yeah, it's everybody should get educated on Parkinson's, and because it can strike anybody, and it's very nasty, very nasty. I took care of my dad for the last 2 years of his life up in Vancouver.
Okay.
And yeah, tough going.
Yeah. Well, I gotta.
He's done some great work. He's done some great work in that area.
Yeah. Well, we got to talk about the gang now. Timothy Van Patten. I mean, what a great performance, him as Stegman. There's two scenes in that movie with him that really stand out. One is the scene at the piano, where apparently he wrote that, huh? He just
Oh yeah, he played that. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Mark didn't even know if he could play. And the whole story about Tim is kind of funny because originally when we were putting this thing together in Los Angeles, I went in and met Mark and did some stuff on tape for him and everything, for the character of Stegman. And then the distributors, as often happens, said, we'd like a bigger name. We'd like that Van Patten kid. They didn't know who they're talking about. There's a lot of Van Pattens, right?
Well, one of them was in Rock and Roll High School.
And who they were talking about, of course, was Vince.
Who was in Rock and Roll High School, right?
Yeah. They wanted Vince. So Vince wanted to do this play here in New York. And he didn't want to do the movie. So he called, Tim is, this gets confusing, Tim is actually Dick Van Patten's younger brother from another mother.
Okay.
So he's technically Vince's uncle, even though he's younger than Vince. So Vince came to New York, where Tim was living, and Tim wasn't really interested in acting all that much. He'd done a couple of things and didn't really care. But Vince called up Tim and said, "Hey, listen, there's this movie up in Toronto, and they want me to do this thing. I don't really want to do it. Why don't you go? They won't care. They just want a Van Patten." So somehow, through some machinations, that's exactly what happened. So Tim, the distributors were happy they had a Van Patten, although it wasn't the Van Patten they really wanted, but they didn't care. And then Mark came back to me, or my agent, and said, "Listen, we have to do this. It's just, it's money, and it's how we're going to get the movie done. But we'll tell you what we'd like to do is like to offer Stefan this other part in the gang that isn't really even written. We just have this, we know we want this really, like, slimy, evil little guy, and we're calling him Drugstore right now, but we haven't even written much dialogue, and we don't really know what he's like, so if Stefan would like to come on board, and he can write his own dialogue, he can wear whatever he wants, and just sort of help us out and make this character, and we'll give him the good billing in front, and we'll pay him the same money we were going to pay him for the Stegman thing." Well, I couldn't refuse that. No. So as a matter of fact, that actually started a whole thing for me where I've done that now, I don't know, maybe 10 times on little films and things where they really didn't have a handle on a character. So it's like, call Stefan Arngrim. He'll come in and fix this. And but Class of '84 was the first one. So a lot of the wardrobe that I was sort of like the punk technical advisor, because I had been in London in '76 and '77, and I knew a lot of those people, and Vivian Westwood and McLaren and all. So and I had a lot of great clothes from there. I had like this great original Ultravox jacket and just a lot of cool punk stuff. So I brought it all in, and then I worked with the wardrobe people, and we made up Drugstore's changes, which also I think influenced a lot of the other clothes in the gang, which was kind of fun. And so it was interesting. And then we had a lot of influence, Neil and Keith and Tim and Lisa and I. We had a lot of influence on what the gang looked like and acted like. And as a matter of fact, we even dug up. Well, not dug up, but we Teenage Head was in Toronto, and they were very popular, and we found the really cool little punk club downtown, and so they got in the movie for the club scene and everything, and that is a real little club, and we'd grab these little punks and punkettes out of the crowd and say, "Okay, listen, you're going to be my girlfriend, and you're going to drive the car," and just to keep things real. And so I think that's probably why, to a great extent, the film seems to have caught on with a whole new generation of young punks who, in some cases, were just little kids at the time the movie happened, or not even born yet. But because there was this sense of authenticity behind it. I mean, we were. Plus, we also decided we were cartoon characters. It was the only way to make all the violence really palatable, is to just think of like Warner Brothers cartoons, So I'm doing a lot of Daffy Duck at Drugstore.
Well, I was going to say the other scene that Timothy Van Patten was in that really grabbed my attention was when he's at the apartment. And with his mom. And I found it interesting because there's a real message there about single parents and how they're oblivious to what's going on outside, and the fact that he is so manipulative, and he's been affected so badly. But you could kind of sense it's because, he doesn't have a dad.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, I thought he was terrific, and that scene was real important, I think, to the movie, and because I think he did in that something that sort of represented all of us in that gang, because I'm sure every single one of us, and we talked about that. We all kind of made up our own little backstories on our characters, and they all had problems and latchkey kids and broken homes and stuff like that. Because that's one of the ways you get to that place. Exactly.
I heard that Timothy Van Patten was the one that made up your Skull and Crossbones white shirt. Is that true?
Yeah, as a matter of At lunch one day, we were sitting around and. Nothing to do, and we had a bunch of marker pens, and we started just drawing on various things, and Tim had this T-shirt, and he started doing it what he called anatomically correct, kind of like Operation Game sort of version of the.
Okay.
And so we really got into that, and and we just watched him do it. And when he finished it, and it was all done, I said, I want to wear this shirt. And he said, okay. So that became part of my wardrobe.
Wow, that was a great wardrobe look for you too. Like when they kidnap Norris's wife, you got a very nasty demise in that film. What was that like to shoot?
What you mean the kidnapping scene?
No, where you're being lit on fire.
Yeah, that was fun. The guy, oh damn, I wish I could remember his name. Great stunt guy, and that's what he did. That was his specialty, was what they call the burn gag. And I think he got like $20,000 a pop for that. He had to do it twice.
Okay.
And so that was your standard sort of Perry and I facing off each other in close-ups and two shots and things, and then go back to the wide shot and bring in the guy and set him on fire, and it was really something. And then they did a whole plaster cast for me with the burn face makeup and all of that at the very end when I'm lying there toasted. Yeah, that was exciting.
Yeah,
exciting stuff.
Drugstore.
And then, of course, Fallon got his arm cut off on the table saw. That was good.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute. But I was going to mention that Drugstore was a bit of a wuss because in the gang fight, you're getting your ass kicked.
Well, and that was my call. Because I actually enjoyed that whole fight a lot. We had fun with that, and it was pretty well choreographed by the stunt coordinator. But at one point, I went to Mark and I said, well, actually, Neil Clifford and I, Fallon and Drugstore were sort of hanging together a lot, and I said to Neil, I said, this doesn't seem like a real fight to me. We're just kicking the crap out of these guys. That's it. And there's only 4 of us, and there's like 6 of them or something. And I said, somebody ought to get hurt. And so I went to Mark. I said, listen, do you mind if I go down a couple of times? They take me down. Maybe Neil can come over and rescue me, And he goes, oh yeah, great, do it, fine.
Yeah,
And
you
so
guys, I think it was like 6 or 7 against 4 of you.
I know. It just didn't seem. Yeah, I thought we were getting into like it's kind of it's real science fiction. Then if the 4 of us were gonna beat up these 7 guys, so I thought somebody ought to get hurt. So I thought, well, Drugstore is probably a little wobbly on his feet anyway.
Well,
So
what it put me in
and
mind of is that,
sneaky, and then it gave me an opportunity to be sneaky and get up and kick a guy when he was down and stuff
oh
like
yeah,
that. Because I was really trying to invest Drugstore with the most irredeemable, despicable qualities I could find. So yes, of course, he was a little coward and a snake, and and all that stuff.
well, I was gonna say that the fight scene kind of reminded me of that opening fight scene in A Clockwork Orange because
Yep.
Alex and his droog, that they were outnumbered by 1 and they still won.
Yeah. That's we thought we actually mentioned that sequence. Neil and I talked about that, and yeah. But the original choreography for it when we got there was just hands down. I mean, the 4 of us came down and just with Louisville sluggers and knocked out all these guys. And I thought, I don't think this is as exciting as if it seems like a real fight and maybe one of us goes down or this and that. So yeah. So it was fun, but that was the nice thing about working with Mark is that he let us all kind of do what felt right. I mean, if it got too far off base, he'd rein it in. But if it looked good and it worked and it made sense and we were comfortable with it, well, of course, why not?
Yeah.
There's a lot of dialogue in that movie, particularly gang dialogue that we made up on the spot. We improvised in the scene. There's even some sort of sequences, and the way the sequences are set up, that's pretty much what we did with them. We kind of blocked them, and Mark said, okay, and shot it. So it was fun.
I like your opening scene. Like, you were very much a comic relief element in the film. Like when he's doing roll
really
call,
glad to hear that.
he's doing roll call, and you're going, "Not here."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that again, pretty much all improvised. We really didn't. There was no real scene there. All it was is that in the script, I remember it was just the gang enters the music room and disrupts it, and that's it. There was nothing else there. So we thought, well, how are we going to disrupt this? So that's how we did it.
And unfortunately, Keith Knight no longer with us, and he just came off
man,
of.
I know. I miss him.
He was in Meatballs, and he was like this
Yeah.
teddy bear of a guy in Meatballs, and then he's playing this nasty guy, Barnyard. What was he like?
I know, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we had a lot of fun. I really, and Keith was a great guy, really funny, and he was just a real sweetheart. And yeah, we had fun, and he had fun doing that because it really was, pretty far away from the real Keith Knight. But we coached each other on our despicable behavior. He like turn to me sometimes and say, "Is this too much? Am I just like too crazy here?" I go, "No, no, don't worry about it."
Well, I heard they were supposed to have another actor play that part, and the guy that was supposed to play it didn't want to cut his hair, and that was when.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember hearing about that. I don't know too much specific about that because that was all the casting out of Toronto, and I was cast out of L.A. at the time. So, but I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I want to mention though is when Keith Knight has his fight with Norris.
Oh yeah.
How much did Perry King do the stunt there, or did other people? Because he picks him up. Did he pick? Did Keith Knight pick the guy up?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Wow.
The answer to that question is pretty much a standard answer to almost all film stunt questions, which is, all films have insurance companies and you know and pay big bonds to their insurance companies, and you know, and there's just so much you can do before the higher ups say no, because you break a wrist or twist an ankle or worse, you're down, now you can't shoot. So that's going to cost money, and it costs hours cost money, let alone days.
Well,
so if you can watch, and like if it gets to a certain point, he lifted him up. He picked him up. Oh yeah.
Was it Perry King he picked up, or a stunt guy?
Well, as I remember, it was both, because he goes in and actually picks him up, and I think there's a cutaway or a turnaround shot, and then there's stunt guys. So we all had stunt doubles, and we would try to go as far as we could, so that you could get closer in on us and really see that it was the person. But there's just some stuff you can't do because it's dangerous. You get hurt, and there's a great group of people called stuntmen who make their living doing that kind of stuff, and I don't want to deprive anybody of their work. So if they want to get burned up or fall down or crash a car for me, go right ahead. And we had a couple of really great stunt drivers. We had the hookers, Bobby Joe and Billy Joe. I forget which one we had did that car roll for Roddy's car and all that stuff. So we had good stunt work.
I heard Roddy did his own driving, though.
Yeah, he did his own driving up to the point that the car takes off down the street and hits that roll. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Again, everybody tried to, when if we could, Mark would come in and say, "Listen, I'd like to get as close in, to see you doing this as possible. Do you think you can handle this, or do you want to do this?" And sure, why not? I mean, most actors are pretty cooperative when it comes to that kind of stuff. Oh, you want a shot of me? Oh, yeah, okay.
You were talking earlier about.
We I don't think. Actually, oddly enough, I don't really remember any serious injuries on that movie, and for a movie that violent, that's kind of rare, because we usually wind up with a couple of people, with at least a broken finger or twisted ankle or something. But I don't remember anybody having any serious problems on that one.
Well, we mentioned earlier Fallon. Now, I got to say, I really liked Neil Clifford, and I have to say, I did not know this until I got the Blu-ray of the movie, and it kind of makes sense, because I remember I was mentioning to Lisa Langlois when I watched a movie that came out the same year as Class of 1984, Conan the Barbarian. They had Sendel Bergman played the female lead, and she, of course, was a skilled dancer, and it kind of added to her performance. Yep. Well, I didn't know this, but I guess Neil Clifford, was a dancer, and I guess it makes...
He sure was.
Yeah, just the way he moved, like when they're chasing the druggie down the stairs, and he's doing all those flips back and forth, and even when he's fighting Norris in the woodroom there with the table saw, very well choreographed, but not corny like in West Side Story.
Yeah, no. He was... Neil had terrific control over his body, and he was in great shape, and that again, Mark kind of assembled us and sort of let us do the thing we did best, in the context of the movie, and then that was it. So that's how the characters in because in the original screenplay, there were really virtually no character development ideas. There's no real description of who is Fallon, who is Drugstore, who is Barnyard, or even who is Stegman. You see more about Stegman because of the family life and that stuff, or Patsy. You don't really know about us. So Mark just decided, well, I got these talented actors. I'll let them figure it out, and so that's kind of what happened. So, they knew they wanted Drugstore to be kind of the drug dealer of the gang, and kind of the little nefarious weasel, and they knew that they wanted both. They didn't know Fallon and Barnyard both were like muscle, and And Patsy originally was supposed to kind of be Stegman's girlfriend, but that kind of changed because, just on the way that Lisa, played it. So what we all went for was kind of what happened, and the character of Fallon sort of developed because of the way that Neil was able to move and be very physically threatening and really look like he knew what he was doing, which he did. And then he and I kind of decided, without even saying it, that Fallon and Drugstore were going to be, tight, and that Fallon was going to look out for Drugstore. So that's why in that fight scene, I call his name, he comes over, he pulls the guy off of me, that kind of thing. We decided, well, we had to show some kind of friendship. So, but it all happened very naturally. That was one of the nice things about that film. It might be why, because I'll be honest with you, when I first signed on, I looked at it and I went, okay, it's a remake of Blackboard Jungle. Fine, that's not a bad idea. But I didn't see it as being, any great statement or anything like that. But I think something about Mark's very loose about the way, he knows what he wants, he knows how he wants it to look, and he knows the impact he wants it to have. But how to get there, I think he kind of lets the actors and crew and everybody, put their 2 cents in, and he hires the right people. He knows how to be. He's a good producer, good director in the sense that he hires the right people for the job, and then he doesn't screw with them. He just lets them do what they do, and that's really what happened. And I think maybe that's probably why Class of '84, worked over the years, is because it does have a kind of intensity to it that came very much from all of us in the film, Perry, everybody.
Were you there for the table saw scene when that was being shot?
I'm sorry, I just lost you for a second. What was that?
Were you there when they shot the table saw scene with Neil Clifford?
Which now?
The table saw scene.
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? Of course I was there. I had to be there for that.
What was that setup like?
Oh, yeah, no, that was great. That took a while, but as I remember, Neil actually did that one. They had fitted him with the prosthetic arm and the blood bag and all that inside the sleeve of one sleeve of his coat. So I think actually Perry and Neil did do the actual cutaway and everything, because it was pretty straightforward, technical, and also again Neil knew how to move and had control of his body. And I think by that time the stunt coordinators were comfortable enough working with Neil. They knew he knew what he was doing. They weren't worried about it. And so yeah, no, that was like all these scenes. It's hours to shoot. What might wind up being 30 seconds of screen time, because you got a lot of different takes and different angles and try different things. And the truth is most movies really get made in the editing room.
Yeah.
And you shoot as much as you can of everything you can, and then you give it to post production and they put it together. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. All those things were fun. Oh yeah, well they shot all the death scenes pretty close together. It was odd in that sense too, that movie was shot almost in sequence, which is very rare for films. Films generally work. You do all the heavy-duty stuff up front, get that out of the way, big stunts and things like that, and then you start working down to, the more intimate acting scenes, because it saves money and time. If something goes wrong with your big stunt, it's better for it to happen in the first week than the last week. And, people aren't as tired. And then also, you're working the location you're working in. If you've got, for example, the school, we had numerous scenes in that school. In most cases, they all would have been shot at once, and just get rid of the school as a location, and that's it. And we didn't do that. We went back and forth quite a bit, which took a little more time, but it was interesting to shoot it in sequence. So all those death scenes, those were all shot within about, I think, 3 days. And the burn and Fallon's thing, and then the car crash and all that stuff.
I still say Patsy lived.
Yeah. I've always felt that too, but yeah.
I had Lisa on here last year, and I've always liked her. Always was quite smitten with her when she played Patsy. I think she's beautiful. I still think she's beautiful, and I'm gonna have her on here again in July for my birthday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Terrific.
Oh
No,
yeah.
Lisa's great. It's interesting, too, because Lisa has kind of two careers. Because she does a lot of Quebecois films, does a lot of French films,
Yep.
and certainly for and has a really good name within francophone cinema, and in Europe and so forth. But in English-speaking films, not as much. She so she plays sort of secondary supporting characters in the English-speaking films, or at least she was at the time when we were doing Class of '84, but then starring in these francophone films, these French movies. So that was really interesting. But she was the one, actually, I remember. She was probably the most distanced from the character and from this whole thing of any of us. I mean, Neil being, an artist and a dancer. And by the way, Neil Clifford is a sculptor now in Toronto,
Okay.
and does some really, really beautiful work. Has a web page. You can, Google Neil Clifford and you'll find him. And he gave up acting, I think, shortly after Class of '84.
Yeah, I heard that there was a little dissension because he had a son or daughter born, and he wasn't allowed to leave the set.
Yeah, there were problems like that, and that does happen with movies. But I don't think it was one thing. I think that I just think Neil, as good as he was, and I think he was a terrific actor, and I really enjoyed working with him. I just don't think it was his passion. I think that, just because you're good at something doesn't necessarily mean that's what you got to do.
I agree.
And I think he liked the higher arts a little better, and that he couldn't at that point keep dancing, so he started sculpting, and he's done some wonderful work.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've kept in touch with Lisa Langlois. Like I said, I had her manager on here last night, and I really like Lisa a lot, and I don't know if you've seen this, but I challenged her to the Doubtfire face. Did you see that?
The what?
The Doubtfire face challenge?
No, I didn't see that. What is that?
Well, when Robin Williams passed away, there was a campaign done similar to the Ice Bucket Challenge, only it was for suicide and depression. And I've suffered from depression most of my life. I'm not suicidal, but I've definitely dealt with depression. And growing up, I always loved slapstick humor. So the Doubtfire Face Challenge was about taking a pie in the face and nominating 3 people. And I nominated. I nominated. I did it, and I nominated some of the people that I interviewed, and I was so grateful that Lisa accepted.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that video?
Yeah, that was that was really something. I had met Robin in the '80s when my father was a personal manager in LA, and he was managing a lot of comics and the Comedy Store and all that stuff. And so, you'd meet all those people and everything. And but then it was only in, I think, 2004 or something, 5, somewhere in there, we got a chance to work together, and we did a movie called The Final Cut, which with James Caviezel and Mira Sorvino.
I love Mira Sorvino.
It had a weird release, and but I still think it's an interesting film, and it's anyway, we got to do some interesting work together, and I just can't say enough about Robin. I think he was brilliant. He's not just a brilliant comic; he was also really an intense and wonderful actor. The character he played in the final cut was by no means a comic character. That was a pretty scary little science fiction movie, and we shot this scene in this underground men's room in a park. It was just a nightmare. It was like a junkie's paradise, and we were down there for about 3 days in this little place. Tak Fujimoto was the cinematographer, and Robin kept everything going. I mean, he was just on all the time. But boy, I'll tell you, the minute they start rolling film, and when he heard that word action, everything changed. And he was right there, and it was amazing to watch. He was really good. So we were always kind of friendly and stuff like that. But yeah, I had sort of seen, not close up, but a relative distance, a lot of his struggles and with depression, and of course he had a lot of struggles with with drug dependency and stuff, which he did beat. He was sober and clean a number of years. But I don't think he ever got near the depression. I don't know about the whole thing. He may also have had Parkinson's. I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know the details of it, but it was certainly very sad. I liked him a lot, and it was a real honor to work with him, and an honor to know him. So, yeah, too bad. A real shame.
And you worked with Mira Sorvino on that too, huh?
We had no scenes together.
Oh, I like her. I loved her in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion.
And I had knew her dad, Paul, and so we had no actual scenes together. It was sort of we were on separate paths in that movie.
But yeah, well, going back to Lisa, it was great to see her do that. Last time I watched Class of 1984, I just kind of had a chuckle. It's like, I got Patsy to take a pie in the face.
Yeah, that's not something you'd expect to do and walk away from, is it?
Yeah, but, like I said, and I was so grateful that she did that I donated to the Single Moms Planet that she's a part of, and I made a couple of donations, and I remember I was in my car going to a friend's house, and my phone rang. I guess it was while I was driving because I didn't hear it, but I had one missed call from California, and it was Lisa.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to know the details of the Doubtfire Face Challenge, and I wanted to get the industry involved.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and the one I did's only got 70 hits, but hers had 500 within a week.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, are you going to do it?
Well, yeah. What do I have to do?
Well, what you do is you do a video, you take a pie in the face, you nominate 3 people for it's called Doubtfire Face for suicide depression. You take a pie in the face, you nominate 3 people. You can nominate, is it your wife or girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
Do it with her.
Okay.
Do it with her. But here's one thing I'll suggest to you.
Okay.
If you know anybody in the industry that you think will do it, nominate them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Doubtfire Face, I'm writing this down. Doubtfire Face Challenge. And then, so I shoot a little video of this, and then what happens to the video? Where do I send that?
You put that up on, you got a YouTube page?
I have a YouTube page. I have a Facebook page. I've got a website. So
put it up on every one of them,
There you go.
And
well, that's easy.
Yeah, like I did it, and I'm trying my best to get the industry involved. And I think Lisa was able to relate to the whole depression thing, and I was so honored because I'm going to tell you something. I tried to do this before, and I had a journalist in L.A. who was following me on Twitter. And I asked, she had interviewed a lot of the people I wanted to nominate. And I wanted to nominate like Emma Stone and Anna Kendrick and people I really was a big fan of that had comedic sides to them that they might do that. And she had interviewed a lot of them. And this journalist, I asked her if she would do it, and she told me I'd have to nominate her first. So I did the video, did some nominations, and I nominated her. And when I sent it out to her, she goes, "It's a great cause, but I'm not taking a pie in the face, but I hope this catches on." And I was so pissed at her.
Well, that's not really the point.
You know, I thought she was very selfish. A very selfish human being, that journalist was.
It's just a pie. Sure. And what do I tell me what I call this, or do you want to send me like the info so I can put it up right and say what it is and all that stuff?
Yeah, I could do that on Facebook. I could do that.
Yeah. Why don't you just message me that stuff?
Yeah.
Like private message like we've been doing, and whatever it is and whatever should be up on the link.
Do you mind if I add you on Facebook?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I got Lisa and I've got Mary, you know. I've got them both on Facebook. I got quite a few.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
Lisa's great. We keep in touch, and she calls me every once in a while and says, "Oh, they're doing a screening of Class of '84 here, and they'd love it if we came." And so it's we're sort of the only two. Tim's still around, but Tim's now a big producer over at HBO. So
Boardwalk Empire, yeah. But
very well.
I love Lisa, and I do anything to help her out, you know. So when she did that, I did make a couple donations to one of her charities, the Single Moms Planet. And so, yeah, she's going to come back. She sang me happy birthday when she was on here last year, and she's going to come on for my birthday and sing it to me again. So.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
That's excellent. When is that? When's your birthday?
My birthday's July 8th.
Oh, great.
I'll be 44.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 10 years old when Class of 1984 came out. You know? Yeah. But
you wouldn't have even been allowed to see the first. That originally they wanted to rate that movie X.
Yeah, I know.
We had to cut a bunch of stuff, and it was really funny because a lot of it had to do with the Mary Lynn Ross character and the fact that she was pregnant, and that original sort of kidnapping rape scene thing was quite a bit longer and pretty brutal. And unfortunately, the MPAA board at that time, which is pretty anonymous, but the Motion Picture Association of America that rates films, there was a pregnant woman on the board.
Oh.
She didn't care for that at all, which is understandable.
And Mary Lynn Ross was executive producer.
Yes, she was, yes. Or co-producer, I believe. Yeah.
It's interesting. I thought it was the table saw scene that nearly got that X-rated.
Yeah. There were some trims in that too. I think there were closer shots of bone and gristle and flesh spewing out and stuff, which didn't make it to the movie. But the rape scene. Well, it wasn't a rape scene in the movie; it's a kidnapping, intimidation thing. But it got pretty intense, and it got very Clockwork Orange when we shot it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty intense, and there were some other things that just, it mostly just shots, close-ups, things like that just were a little intense.
I heard that. I'll tell you how I got Mary Lynn Ross. I didn't know whether she'd do it, but I interviewed Belinda Belansky, who was, of course, in the movie The Howling. And when Timothy Van Patten is at his apartment with his mom, he's watching television, and the movie that he's watching is called Bobby Joe and the Outlaw. Which, yeah, that's another Mark Lester film.
That's right.
Yeah, and I've since seen it, but at the time I hadn't. But I'd interviewed Belinda Belansky, and Belinda was wonderful. I absolutely love Belinda. I've got her on Facebook, and I've kept in touch with her. But she was the one that hooked me up with Mary Lynn Ross.
Wow, yeah, terrific.
In fact, I'm thinking about having her and Mary Lynn both come on again to talk about Bobby Joe, but I'm still in touch with Mary, just like I am Lisa, and Mary was wonderful, and she was wonderful to talk to, and I know she enjoyed the interview, but I asked her about that rape scene, what it was like to do that, and I guess you guys were more uncomfortable doing that scene than she was.
It was touchy. Well, one of the things I think that happens sort of naturally on a lot of films is, like Mary Lynn, Mary was, she was involved in co-producing the movie and all of that, but because we didn't have any scenes with her, we didn't work a lot of the same days, and we really didn't, none of us in the sort of gang really got terribly friendly because we didn't see her very much. She was working on the days we were not. And also, you just kind of, it's not intentional, but, we all sort of knew that, that what was coming. And I think for myself, I sort of thought, well, I don't know that it's going to be helpful for us to get too friendly before, I have to go in here and, brutalize this woman. So you just sort of, it just sort of naturally happens. You're not that close on the shoot. And so, so when it came the night to shoot that, it was, we had to discuss like how far it was going to go. And so that's actually the night when we were all talking about it, and I said, well, the only thing I can think of is it's just Warner Brothers cartoons. That's the only way, So, I'll be Daffy Duck, and you can be. As a matter of fact, Keith was doing an Elmer Fudd thing. There's a line that's been cut from the movie where he's up on top of Mary Lynn, and he looks down at her and he goes, I got you now, you ignorant slut.
Oh.
So, which may have been a little over the top and silly too, but Oh, well, all those things are a little touchy because we're all actors and we all respect each other as human beings, and sometimes you're asked to do some pretty awful things with people, and excuse me, you don't mind if I drag you by the hair around the room, do you? And it's just weirdness, yeah.
I'm going to tell you, when I break that gang down, like I pretty much knew all these characters in high school,
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but good.
Well, Stegman is the kind of guy who, except for that one scene where he confronts Mr. Norris after he, bashes his car up, Stegman doesn't do much without his gang. He almost is powerless without his gang.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And he kind of strikes me as the kind of people that would want to fight me after school. Now, I've been out of high school for over 25 years, but this is like yesterday,
Right, right.
He's the kind of guy that would challenge me to a fight, but never show up alone.
Right. Send somebody else.
Drugstore is kind of a wuss, no offense.
No, it's true. That's, yeah, believe me.
He was kind of a shit disturber. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he knew how to get the drugs and stuff like that, and that was where he came in handy. And then you got Fallon and Barnyard, and there's one very big difference between the two. Barnyard was a little more playful, and it's, the scene where they're in the back room and they bring that kid in who wants to join the gang. He kind of sticks the bat in the back of his head, but does it in a kind of an amusing manner,
Again, a virtually improvised scene. I don't think there was a line of dialogue in there that was in the script. All we knew is that there was a scene where, we bring in this girl and gonna, turn her out as a Coco or some stuff like that. And then we just got in that room and started playing around with stuff and said, okay, I'll do this, you do that, we'll do this.
But with Barnyard,
again, it was fun to shoot.
You get the feeling that Barnyard's not very cleanly, but
no, I don't think so.
But Fallon, I'm going to tell you, Fallon is the one I was most intimidated by. And I think he was
the real psychopath, I think.
I think he was the most dangerous one in the gang, and I'll tell you why.
I thought so. Well, we all thought so, actually, and that's actually was a conscious thing. I think that we sort of decided that Fallon most likely to be a serial killer. Yeah.
Well, you got two moments. One, he nearly hits Marilyn Ross with the chain. If it wasn't for you to stop him.
Yep.
And he had no conscience. I'm glad he didn't do it because Mary Lynn is beautiful. And yeah. And number two, when he's on the table saw, like,
oh yeah,
you can see him flinching and flinching, but he has a chance to pull himself out of that and say, okay, I'll help you find your wife. But no, right. he keeps at it, and he gets his arm sawn off. And I'm like, that's man, right. That was Fallon. Fallon was scary. Now, Patsy would be the reason why I would be in trouble with that gang. You know, because I've had situations where I'm liked girls and got myself into those problems because I liked the wrong girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, she was definitely the wrong girl. That's that's Patsy all over.
Thank goodness Lisa is not Patsy, you know.
No, not at all. Like I say, I think she may have been sort of just, you know, in her own life, further away from all of this kind of stuff than anybody else. I think the rest of us sort of, you know, we'd been exposed to some punk stuff, and we knew, you know. But Lisa spent most of the movie feeling very lost. She kept saying, I don't know what am I gonna do here?
She did a great job improvising, like the bottle scene where she broke the bottle, where she took the picture, or where she did the little gestures with her finger, you know, and like when Mr. Norris gets that picture and he looks and she does that little finger through the whole thing, and
Elizabeth Taylor.
I love that. She did that on the phone for me too, you know. But
that's pretty much, again, that's all Lisa, you know.
And when she first sees Michael J. Fox in that opening classroom scene, you know, she's like licking him and stuff, you know, and grabbing the girl's clarinet and sucking on it. Like, she was very good at doing stuff. But I remember her saying that during the club scene, she kept herself low key because I guess there was some of the punk girls were going to get her, she said.
Oh yeah. You know, that whole scene is, again, pretty almost documentary. That was a club in Toronto, and the band Teenage Head was playing, and those were, you know, we paid them as extras, but those were all regulars at the club, punk kids at the club. That mostly Neil Clifford and I had gone downtown and found, and yeah, sure, they were punk kids, and they were like, oh, here come the actors, punks, ha 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 ha. So, you know, so when you see us like bashing into each other, and I think I rode in on Keith's shoulders and and was swinging a lot. So there was some reality in that. You know, we kind of had to let them know that we weren't the sissy actors from Hollywood, and I think Lisa wasn't so much. But you know, the amazing thing about Lisa is that she really didn't. She was constantly very concerned and like, what do I do here? I don't understand this, and then. But then when we came down to do it, she would just do these things, like you said, like the thing with, you know, licking Michael's face and, you know, and playing with the clarinet and stuff.
And she was very natural.
That was all spontaneous. She just sort of came up with that, you know. And then she'd go, do you think that was work? Do you think it would work? Did it make sense? It was like,
she was great.
It was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It
was in that sense, it was a real fun film to make because it was very spontaneous and like, at least from the gang point of view, we were pretty much improvising that. And yeah.
Oh yeah. But she she was great with the improvisation, especially when you guys had kidnapped the teacher. Like I was telling her, like, I love the lighting whenever she's jumping out and going, "Hey, teacher, teacher," you know, and the lighting of the exit signs and stuff. You know, all that was very well done. You know, but I really liked her. If I had made one change to the screenplay, I probably would have had Michael J. Fox and Joe Kell have one more friend, and I would have wrote a subplot having that one other friend be infatuated with Patsy.
Oh, there you say you would have written yourself into the movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then we would have had to kill you. You know what?
Oh, yeah. But I probably would have done that, and it might have made an interesting little subplot.
Oh, I'm sure. Listen, there were a lot of things there were a lot of stuff that we thought of during the movie and afterwards. You always do. The minute you leave the set, you think, oh, I should have done this or I could have done that.
We didn't talk much about Joe Kell, who played, of course, worked with Lisa in Deadly Eyes and directed her
Right.
in Summer 11. Of course, he was the guy who got high and fell off the flag.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing he wasn't auditioning for Superman 3.
I doubt it. But well, why not? I mean,
I'm like, then he read the script and said, "Oh, gee, the first two are so good." Drop to his death.
Yeah.
But what was Joe Kell like?
Well, we didn't really work that much together, other than just that
Washroom scene,
hallway
yeah.
scenes, and then passing the hallway, and then of course his big thing on the flagpole and stuff. But we were all on the ground watching it, so we didn't. I didn't. Again, schedules are weird on movies, and so we didn't really get to work together. He's a very nice guy, and everybody on the movie was really pleasant to work with. I didn't have any, I certainly didn't have any problems with anybody. But no, we didn't get real close or anything because we were sort of in different ends of the film.
And then there's Erin Noble as the clarinetist,
Yeah.
Yeah, she's interviewed on the Blu-ray, yeah.
She was terrific, yeah. She was a local girl from Toronto, I guess, at the time, and yeah.
One thing I heard...
I would have actually liked to have seen a little more of her in the movie. I thought she was a really interesting character, so, But yeah, there's all kinds of things. Overall, I guess, they got what they wanted, which was, a nice, tight, slick little weird action movie, and I don't think anyone had any idea that it was going to be, like I said earlier, like it was going to be that even people will be talking about it now. I mean, because when you're doing these things, nobody ever knows. You just got to look at it as I do anyway. This is a job. I'm doing a job, and I'm going to do the best I do because that's what I do. But you don't really think about, is this going to be a hit, or is this not going to be, or is this a bad movie or a good movie? Because really, the more of these you do, the more you realize you have no idea. And so many things are going to happen in the editing room. I mean, I've done several films where, I'm Mr. Not appearing in this film. I mean, it's like, for one reason or another, the sort of, well, you mentioned the movie Strange Days.
I love that film, by the way.
Catherine Bigelow, Catherine, and she was great, and Ray Fine we got to do a couple of things together. But there was a whole subplot to that movie that involved me and several other actors, and the screenplay was written by James Cameron and Jay Cox. And it was a wonderful screenplay. And but it was a big fat one too. It was over 120 pages, which is standard, And I think when they got the film into the editing room, it just was too convoluted. There were too many things going on. So they wound up just taking out about almost 15, 20 minutes of the movie. And that happens sometimes. I've done a couple of films like that. Chronicles of Riddick is another one. There was a whole subplot that I was involved in, and it just didn't make it to the film because it didn't hold up. Sometimes the timing when you're editing things, you look and you go, oh, this is great, but the film just came to a halt here, and, can't do that. So, that happens, but,
I'm going to come back to Strange
so you
Days.
You never really know. I think it's a mistake to predict these things. I mean, I'll tell you for sure, I never would have thought that, this many years later, even you and I would be sitting here talking about Class of 1984. I mean, not that I thought it was a lot of fun, but I certainly didn't think it had the staying power that it has.
Oh yeah,
any of these things really.
There's a couple other things though about Class of 1984 I want to mention though. One great opening song by Alice Cooper, "I Am the Future." Did you ever meet
And Lalo
Alice?
Schifrin. I mean, that's a trip there. Lalo Schifrin, most famous for writing the Mission Impossible theme, wrote the music for Class of '84 and actually collaborated with Alice on that theme song, which is
Yep.
really a weird little marriage right there.
And I gotta say too, I play Teenage Head a lot on the show.
Oh, good.
And
Oh, great.
I know during the club scene they sing "Ain't Got No Sense," but you know what? My favorite Teenage Head song is the one
Huh.
that you don't hear mentioned so much with Class of '84, but it's in the movie, and it's during the scene where the girl's getting naked. And I joked with Lisa Langlois about this. This is the first time a woman's getting naked on the screen, and here I'm listening to the song "Little Boxes" play in the background.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's a great tune. I forgot about that. That's for Little Boxes. Well, I guess there's an editorial joke in there somewhere.
I play that song a lot. I love that song, Little
Yeah,
Boxes.
yeah, yeah.
And you can hear that in the background, alimony, alimony. You can hear that in the background. And
Yeah, those guys are great. They were a lot of fun.
I heard their
Yeah,
lead
they
singer's
actually
gone,
hung
huh?
out for a while. Even after the club scene, they were hanging out on the set and visiting and stuff like that. So it was fun.
Is the lead singer gone now? Is he the one that passed away?
I believe so. I don't want to say for sure, but I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I like Little Boxes, and I like Picture My Face. That was another song they did I liked.
Right.
And Your Sister Used to Love Me. It was funny.
It's such a good title.
Yeah, love Teenage Head. And another thing I heard about the film, like I love the location, but I heard that I guess the producers got in a little bit of trouble because when class resumed, all the graffiti was still on the wall.
Oh, the art department went a little crazy and and yeah, they left some graffiti behind and normally that stuff is done with a water soluble paint and everything, but apparently some of the guys in the art department got a little carried away and so yeah, but that always happens too. I mean, you have a I mean, everybody thinks it'd be great to have a film company come and shoot in their house or something like that. Oh no, you don't want that. They'll tear the place apart, and there'll always be something wrong later. No, it's like having an army live in your house. So that's what it was like. It was like having an army move into Central Tech High School.
Wow. Is that school still operational?
I have no idea.
I should look that up.
Yeah, I have no idea at this point.
I've never been outside New Brunswick, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I've never been to Toronto, and I know if I ever go there, I think I might want to visit that spot, but I don't get very far. But as far as I've gone is St. John of Moncton. I saw Avril Lavigne in concert, but
Oh, wow, yeah.
yeah, I don't get that far, but I do remember Lisa relating a story to me, and I got to mention this because I heard that every one of you were very uncomfortable with the scene where the girl got naked. That was a very uncomfortable scene.
Initially, yeah, I think so. It just, well, again, we weren't. There wasn't much written. It just really was. The gang is in their, headquarters or whatever, and a girl is brought in and strips for them, and it just was weird, and we didn't know really how to do this or what to do, and so I think we all just sort of picked little various things, and I had an easy out because I made Drugstore such a hedonistic junkie that he wouldn't have cared who came in and stripped. So
Yeah.
it didn't matter, And but yeah, it was a little weird at first, and I think that's why Keith's performance is so great in that because he does do a real low-key, comedy thing with that. And I think it made it work because we tried to do it sort of very seriously at first. and it just came off kind of ugly. It really just, which might not have been bad, but it just came off really, really unlikable, and it's tough to play really bad guys like that, and at the same time make them likable. That even they're terrible, but you got to laugh. And that's what you got to do, because let's face it, if I just made the villains just really despicable people, then who cares, right?
Yeah.
So you got to give them some humor or something going on. I remember that scene taking a while, There was a lot of stuff like that, though, where we were kind of, we'd get there and it was sort of like, well, what now?
Well, if I don't want to criticize Mark Lester, but if I had a shot that scene, I probably would never have shown that girl naked. I'd probably have, and I told Lisa this too, and she agreed with me, that I probably would have had a shot of her looking like she was taking her clothes off, but have like clothes drop at her feet or something like that, and imply it. Yeah.
I think the idea is just to kind of and it does kind of work on this way. It's just so brazen, and there's something very non-sexual about it too.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us are responding to her sexually at all. Even Fallon, who Tim tells him to try her out and everything. You don't get any sense of any kind of sexuality in that. It's
a little bit out of Patsy.
Yeah. That was really interesting. I thought that was one of the most interesting things, because it's Lisa who says, "Tell her to take off her clothes,"
And you go, "Take your clothes off."
Yeah, and that was great for us, because we thought, well, if one of the guys does this, I don't know, even as despicable characters, it's So when Lisa came up with that was like, oh, great, thanks, yeah, the evil little girl did it.
Yeah, but it's weird going back to Patsy. She never seemed linked to anybody,
Right. No, like I said, originally I think the idea was she was Stegman's girlfriend, but then very quickly that just sort of morphed away, and she was just part of the gang, really, and and we all sort of had our skills, like anti-superheroes, and
yeah.
and or supervillains or whatever. So it worked out. But again, very much kind of just the feel of things and the way it worked out and what made sense and what felt natural and as natural as it could feel.
Yeah. Well, I heard though that the extras of the film were not treated very well. Do you want to relate anything about that?
Well, being an extra on a movie is a tough job anyway. I mean, that I've seen that happen before. I can't think of any particular stories that jump out at me on Class of '84. I can think of actually some other pictures and shows I've done that have far worse stories. But yeah, that happens. We had a lot of extras on that movie, and a lot of varied extras. We had the kids in the school, and then we had the punks, and then yeah. I can't really relate any particular incident that I remember about anyone being really mistreated, But yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to be an extra on that movie.
No. Well, I want to mention stuff about a couple of your other films, but before I do, sure. I do know, in talking to Lisa, I know there's certain people from that movie that I know she had mentioned. When I talked to her, she mentioned that I should try you, and I tried you, and I got hold of course, Mary Lynn Ross, and she also suggested Joe Kell, and yeah. I might even try Aaron Noble if I find contact information, but I heard there's certain people from that film that don't like to talk about it.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, but yeah, yeah. But again, I actually have found that I can't offhand think of a film I've done where everybody was happy. I mean, I did a film couple of years before Class of '84 called Fear No Evil, and that's a pretty divided camp. About half the people in that who were involved in that movie had a lot of fun, possibly a little dangerous, but a lot of fun. and the other half really just hated it and felt it was totally out of control. And, so, you never know. You never know. And listen, I've done films where I was one of the dissatisfied people. So, you got a lot of people involved in a movie. You got maybe, several hundred people involved in crew, and then you got principal cast and supporting cast and extras and all that. So, at any one given time, you might have like several hundred people. Well, on Strange Days, the last 3 days of that movie, we had 10,000 dress extras downtown L.A. at the Bonaventure Hotel. That was insane. There were 300 people went to the hospital with drug overdoses, and
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know of any specific incidents of unfairness, but yeah, extras do sometimes get treated like cattle, and there's extras holding, which is a tent, and and yeah.
Well, here's a question: do you think Neil Clifford would come on this podcast?
My instinct is no, but I still would try.
Okay.
Go check his website, send him an email or something. I'm not entirely sure why, but he doesn't have real fond memories of his acting days. It's not just Class of '84. He just, I just don't think he found it very satisfying. And so I've never seen any print or heard or of any interviews with Neil regarding that movie or anything else. And so my instinctive answer would be no. I don't think he would probably do it, but I don't think that means you shouldn't try. Because he's a terrific guy. He's quite brilliant, and I'm sure he'd be great to talk to.
Yeah, because I've got nothing but good things to say about him, especially as how he employed his dancing to him fighting. And I also heard Timothy Van Patten's very tight-lipped about it as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Again, it was kind of a last minute thing for Tim, and he at the time he wasn't really all that interested in pursuing an acting career, and he just sort of did this because his nephew Vince asked him to, and so it was a family favor, and also they paid him good. But I think Tim's big complaint with the movie at the time when we were doing it is that he felt that his Stegman seemed to him a little out of place with the rest of us. He kept referring to his wardrobe as Rocket Robin Hood, and, and so he was. I think he was a little. I just think he was inexperienced at the time with it all, and I don't think it was something he was, he just sort of did it because it was there, and but I don't know. I haven't talked to Tim in years. When we have talked, we always, joke about something to do with the movie, but yeah, he may. It's not where he went, with that. He went and. But even White Shadow, I don't think he really spends a lot of time talking about. He really wanted to be, where he is now, I think, behind the desk and making these things. And that's worked out well for him.
Could you imagine if it had been Vincent Van Patten getting that role after he was comedic in Rock and Roll High School?
Yeah, that would have been strange, huh?
Yeah, that would have been funny.
Yeah. It's funny about those things, but that's the way those things work out. I always say, it's like You know, who can think of anybody else playing Popeye Doyle in The French Connection but Gene Hackman?
Oh, that's
right?
a great movie.
But Gene Hackman was cast 3 days before that film started. There was another actor who has been unnamed for years who was signed to do French Connection, who, for I guess some artistic differences between William Friedkin, didn't do the film. And so casting had to hustle, and they got Gene Hackman. They signed him on 3 days before production started. So he was not the guy that they thought was going to be Popeye Doyle, yet now you can't even imagine anybody else.
And he won the Oscar.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So these things have a funny life of their own, and they all, when they work, all the elements kind of work, and it sometimes gets downright mysterious. When they don't work, then they don't work too. The same thing. Nothing works. So, you never know. You just never know.
I gotta mention a little bit about Strange Days. Like when I took some film classes, one of the classes I took was a sci-fi class, and we watched Strange Days. And I don't remember you in it, but I looked up on Internet Movie Database. You play a character named Skinner. Now,
that's right.
Yeah, elaborate on your part so that when that comes out on Blu-ray,
I can. The original screenplay of Strange Days, Skinner is the street dealer for the SquidNet data, for the virtual reality data. And like I was the guy who was setting up all those things, like the beginning of the film when they do that robbery and the whole thing, and they have the guy who's wearing the squid net and he dies, and that's the recording, and then I'm selling those recordings to people. And so
is that you that they find with the squid thing on his head, and he's
no.
Okay.
No, the only scene you'll see me in that movie is when Rafe and I first meet up in this bar. He comes into the bar, and there's this long pan down the bar to me and these two topless girls standing there, and then Rafe walks up and he says, "So, Skinner," or whatever, "so what?" And I say, "Well, I got something for you here." Cut, boom, gone. That's it. Because it went into a whole other subplot about street dealing of virtual reality and all this stuff, and that just got too complicated. What with Juliet's subplot about her singing thing and Michael Wincott, and then also the what's his name, the hip hop guy who gets killed by the cops, which AKA kind of a Rodney King kind of thing. So there were so many things going on in the movie. They had to sort of trim it down to one. So yeah, so Skinner was like basically the virtual reality street dealer.
And I gotta say too, Juliette Lewis, I got her CD, Terra Incognita. I did not know she's now taken up singing now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, she's had a band for a while, actually.
I didn't know she could sing until I saw Strange Days. And I'm going to tell you why my favorite scene in the movie is where she's doing that solo, and you got, of course, Ralph Fiennes looking at her, and just... That to me was my favorite moment, and I love that song she was singing. Yeah,
no, she's very talented, and she's a lot of fun, and I remember when I did that picture, I just left town for Vancouver, and then I got the call on that movie, and so they flew me down, and we were in downtown LA at night, which is weird enough, and it was Juliet's birthday, so that day, so I arrived, and we had a nice party and all of that. And it was a great set to work on, I'll tell you that. James Cameron, make sure he was, executive producer. It was very, very nice.
Yeah.
Good craft service, nice food, good dinner. All the things that are important to actors. Good dressing rooms, yeah.
And you were also, I did not see this movie, but I guess you were in the remake of The Fog.
Yeah. I was in, that was funny because years ago, John Carpenter I must have read for him for about 3 or 4 different films, and things like Christine, and I think even the original Carrie, and all this stuff. And for one reason or
he
another,
didn't do Carrie.
It never worked out. We never got to work together, and either his schedule was different than mine, or I was doing something else, or or it just wasn't a right fit, or whatever. We just didn't. But I always liked John, and he always liked me. He kept calling me. So, in 2004, something like that, 2005, I booked this job in Vancouver, and it was a remake of The Fog. And John was the executive producer at Revolution Films, because that's what he's doing now. Is he's remaking all of his hits from the 70s and stuff with new directors and writers and stuff. And that was nice. That was nice. And when I arrived on the set, and I went to my dressing room, and in my dressing room there's a big basket, and with fruits and a bottle of wine and all this stuff, and a lovely card that said, "I finally got you, John."
I don't think he'll ever make a movie as fine as that.
Trying, I got to work with. Didn't work with John actually in the movie. He was in L.A., but he got me in one of his films, which I guess was a triumph for him after trying for so many years.
I don't think he'll make a movie as fine as Halloween. That is his masterpiece. I think that.
Well,
Escape from New York is another one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I also saw you listed for the A-Team movie, which I got to admit I liked better than a lot of people did.
Joe Carnahan directed that, and that was one of the reasons I did that, because it was actually a nothing little part. It was just this quick thing, but I really liked Joe Carnahan's work. His first movie was a great movie with Jason Patrick and God, I want to say Ray Liotta. Maybe, I think it was Ray Liotta, called Narc.
Oh, that was a great movie. I seen that.
Yeah, well, that was Joe's first movie, and he directed a bunch. But when I found out he was doing A-Team, my agent called me and said, "Are you interested in this?" And I said, "Yeah, Joe Carnahan, sure." And then, of course, Liam Neeson was in it, and he was fantastic, because it was really tragic. But within weeks before we started that movie, his wife died.
Okay, yeah,
his wife died, and he was, of course, in terrible grief. But he never let it show. He because the star of a movie always kind of sets the tone for the picture. It isn't really the director or the producer. It's the star of the movie. That's really who everybody looks at. If they're happy, that's good, And Liam Neeson was remarkably professional under what must have been very terrible circumstances for him. That's a weird thing. That happened actually on The Fog too. Deborah Hill. Was John Carpenter's partner and co-producer, died just before The Fog. And, because life goes on, right? Just because we're making movies. And A-Team was a lot of fun to do. Plus, I loved working with Shalto. He's a really funny guy. And there's another case where I kind of got called in to just... They had to have this character, had to be in the mental hospital, had to be a friend of, and do this whole thing, but they didn't know what. So, because of my precedent in doing that in Class of '84, that's one of the many jobs I've been called in and said, figure this out and do something interesting. So we did. Basically all that mental hospital stuff is pretty much improvised. Shalto and I did that.
Shalto was just in Hardcore Henry, and he just stole the movie.
He's just terrific. I really like that guy. I think he's really talented and so much fun to work with. Really a lot of fun.
Well, I was going to ask, I know we've been on here almost 2 hours. Lisa Lanwell's was my longest interview, 2 hours, and you're pretty much approaching my second longest. But Class of 1984, there's just so much to cover. But I know that you've been involved with music and you get a web page and whatnot, and I was wondering, would you like to plug that?
Oh, well, yeah, I don't have anything in the market right now, but I am working on a bunch of new tunes. And what was that? Huh? Oh yeah, so I'm working on a bunch of new tunes and stuff like that here in New York, and yeah, I'll probably have some new material. And I play, I'm a guitar player and a singer-songwriter, and and I had the honor of writing with Warren Zevon
Okay.
some years ago, and we did a couple albums together, and so yeah. And I actually, you know what? I can I'll Facebook you a couple of MP3 tunes you can have a listen to.
You know what? We can play that stuff on here too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, here at the station, like we're an independent station,
Terrific.
on university campus. Like we don't do commercial radio here.
Right.
So especially since you're Canadian and we value our Canadian content. Yeah, I could play that. Now, I don't know when, because this is recorded. I haven't done a live show in a few months because you're my 34th interview I've done. And my show is an hour on Sunday evenings from 8 till 9, which would be 7 to 8 your time. But so I'll have to divide your interview into a couple of weeks.
Well,
but
sure, yeah.
whenever I podcast it out, you have my permission to put it on your webpage, Facebook, wherever you want to put it.
Great. Just send me the links and stuff, and yeah, and I'll private message you a couple of like MP3s, and you can take a listen if you want to run them. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I could. When it probably this interview probably won't air until sometime in June, because believe it or not, I still got 4 other interviews that are in draft right now that haven't aired them yet.
Wow.
Oh
That's
boy,
great,
I am very happy about it. But like, I gotta play the other half of the Deborah Shelton interview, and Jenny Wright, I've got to play hers, and I've got.
Oh, Jenny. Oh yeah. Yeah, Jenny's my unofficial little sister.
Jen, okay, I got a story to tell you. I had her on here last week. And she was very much under the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she wasn't feeling well, but she did the interview. But I got a message from her this week saying that she would like to do the interview again because she thinks she could do better. And, I want her to like the interview, and she was very pleasant.
Yeah.
But
She does it. She does that a lot, actually.
What?
But yeah, I convinced her some years ago to go out and start doing some conventions and stuff because she was, she wasn't really doing much, and she was in LA, and she was, and I said, you got to get out and some of these conventions and sign some autographs and stuff because people love you and they know your work. And Near Dark is a great film, and all her stuff.
Pink Floyd, The Wall.
And so she did, And she's just upstate from me here in New York now.
Well, she wanted to do, she messaged me Wednesday. I got her on Facebook, and she wanted to do this again because she said, she was ill and wanted to do it. And I want her to do it again, but I'm having a hard time getting her attention. I sent her 3 messages saying, I'm free this weekend with the exception of your interview. And it's like, flagging her attention can be hard,
Yes. That's always been the case with Jenny, I'm afraid.
Like I wanted to get her to do the.
If I do speak to her though, I will remind her about you.
Yeah, I had a good chat with her, but I want her to like it, because I know she was under the weather, and she probably wasn't at her best, and I want her to be satisfied with what I'm trying to do with her, and.
Sure. No, that's very nice, Greg. Yeah, well, like I say, if I do talk to her, I would certainly mention it, and I'll tell her I did a terrific interview with you, and it was a lot of fun, and yeah, she's very self-critical. So
Yeah, I know. I got that, and I spent a year trying to get her, and.
Yeah.
And finally got her because I loved her in Pink Floyd, The Wall. You should nominate her for the Doubtfire Face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's somebody you could nominate.
That's one right there. I'm going to write that down right here.
Yeah, there you go. You going to do that with your is it your wife or girlfriend?
Fiance.
Fiance. Well, there you go.
Claire. Yeah, we haven't set a date yet, but we will. Yeah, she's fabulous. She was a ballerina with New York City Ballet and a Rockette at one point.
Ah.
and has done a lot of musical theater like Phantom and Wicked and stuff like that. Very, very talented, brilliant, beautiful woman.
Do you think
I'm a very lucky guy.
Do you think she would
We
do
met, actually.
Doubtfire
What's really
Face with
funny
you?
is We first met, Claire and I first met here in New York in Carl Schurz Park over on the East River, right between Fear No Evil and Class of '84. I had just finished Fear No Evil, and I came back down from upstate to the city, and she was doing a photo shoot for, I guess, New York City Ballet, and they were just wrapping up. And I walked by, and there was this beautiful ballerina changing out of her toe shoes, sitting up against a wall. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, no, I too much, And I kept walking. And she followed me until the heel of her shoe broke. But then some 35 years later, through mutual friends and oddly enough, Facebook, I was in Vancouver at the time, we started talking, and then she remembered this incident that we had met in 1980 and all of that. And, so that was kind of a real magical little event, and and we're very happy. And we just
wow, congratulations!
We just got a new place here in the city, and just getting settled and everything, and then
Oh, you gotta do Doubtfire Face with her.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's for a very good cause, suicide and depression.
You bet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to get the industry involved. Yeah, put Jenny right down there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know anybody
from...
Well,
let me think about it too. And, because I'm thinking of some people who might be fun for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And,
okay, two quick things before I go, and I apologize for keeping you so long.
No, don't worry about it, Greg. It's fine.
Okay. Number one, and I always ask my guests this, but I got to ask you, is there a way I could get an autographed picture?
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah, just message me your address or where you want to send, and yeah, of course.
Oh, that'd be great. And
you want a Class of '84? I got a really nice gang picture from Class of '84.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I'm still waiting for Lisa's autograph, but I realized too, and I said this with Antonia Franceschi from Fame.
Right.
I'm still waiting for their autograph. I know they'll send it, but life gets in the way, Yeah. Yeah, life gets in the way.
Yeah, I always feel so guilty about that sometimes because I think, God, I promised I'd send this, and then I found out a few years ago that everybody is doing it. It's like we're all doing that. We're all going, oh damn, we're checking. But okay. Yeah, if you just Facebook message me your info, and I will. I'll get you a picture out, no problem.
Oh yeah, and I'll friend you on Facebook too. And
when
this when this interview is done, like I said, when it's ready to go out, I'm going to send the link to you. And another thing too, I'm right now in the midst of putting all my interviews on my YouTube page, which just launched.
Cool.
And I'm putting them up one at a time. I just put Lisa's up today.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I got 5 of them up. Hers was my 5th. Yours my 34th. So yours will be a while going. But I got her permission on this. And most of the people I've interviewed, gave me permission. I wanted to know, is it okay if I use some headshots of you to go along with the audio?
Oh, sure. Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And my last thing before I let you go, would you kindly do a plug for my show?
Oh, yeah. What do you need?
Just say your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise. That's the name of my show in Fredericton. Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Hi, this is Stefan Arngrim, You're listening to Greg Gilbert, Python's Paradise in Fredericton, New Brunswick.
You got it right on. Well, you know what, Stefan? This has been such an honor, and this thing, class of 1984, is going to be 35 years old next year.
Oh, my God.
Wow, huh?
Who would have thought?
Who'd have thought? And like I said, when I play Teenage Head on here, I always give it a mention. And like I said, I'm still in touch with Lisa. I'm still in touch with Mary Lynn Ross. I got to say this.
Have you ever talked to Mark?
I haven't talked to Mark yet, no.
Yeah, well, he's reasonably accessible. You should try and get a hold of Mark. I don't have a number on him right now, but yeah, he's around. Ask Lisa; she might know where he is.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to tell you, when she did the Doubtfire face, I'm going to tell you, I was so appreciated that she did that, and it's. I look at Patsy different. Like Patsy took a pie in the face. She told me she did when she did the first video. She did from Canadian standpoint. She nominated some Canadian comics, and I think she wants to do an American one as well. And I don't know. I'm gonna see if she'll dress up like Patsy when she does it. Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
Well, here's another case. So Lisa, I'm sure, well, I know because we've talked a lot, she's just as surprised that, the interest in Class of 84 after all these years, too. And I think initially she was a little uncomfortable with the movie and just her performance and the wardrobe and all that. It seemed so extreme to her. And but she's really gotten to like it now. And I recently actually... my fiancée Claire and I made friends with this girl in England, this artist who did some really nice paintings. She did a really great painting of Claire and I from a photograph, but also did a painting of Drugstore.
Okay.
Holding his straight razor and stuff. Well, her movie heroine of all time is Patsy.
Yeah.
She told me, whenever I'm up against it and I don't feel I can do this or I'm afraid, I just try and channel my inner Patsy.
Well, there you go.
So I got Lisa and Katie together on that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I love this movie. I really appreciate you, and I really love Lisa and Mary and the whole bunch, and I'm so glad I was able to do 3 interviews from this film and talk about Strange Days with you, among other things. And thank you so much, Stefan, for coming on today.
No problem, Greg. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we got in a lot of little fun things to do here, and yeah. We'll continue this.
We will continue this. Well, you know what?
All right.
Yeah, God bless you, and you have yourself a great day, and I'll get this out to you whenever it's ready.
Terrific. And don't forget, send me your information on where you want this picture and anything else you want to send me on the Doubtfire Face Challenge in terms of, how it's anything you want me to say or post on it or anything like that, okay?
Yeah, you got to check out Lisa's a video for that too.
I will. Where is that? Is that on your YouTube channel?
Okay, go on my YouTube channel. Just write down Greg Gilbert in Python's Paradise. And
okay.
Yeah, and I've got 5 interviews up there right now. And I've got...
Okay, great.
Yeah, and like if you're my 34th, I'm putting up 1 a week. But I've got 5 of them up there yet, and I just put Lisa's up. And hers was 2 hours, and yours is pretty much approaching that too. And I got my Doubtfire face, and I got hers up there, and hers got almost
terrific.
Hers has almost 700 hits.
That'll give me some guidelines.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, hers was fantastic.
Good. I can't wait.
There you go. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, it was a pleasure and an honor.
Well, yes, it was a pleasure and an honor. Thanks very much. I enjoyed it very much. And I'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. God bless you, man.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.